Hi there, my name is Jen. Welcome to The Cup and the Pen. In today's video, I'm going to read one-star GoodReads reviews of my favorite books. Why? Because I thought it would be fun, but now that I'm about to start, I'm a little nervous. I really love these books, and I'm honestly scared to look at bad reviews of them. Like what if I realize that I'm wrong and these books aren't actually good, or they're problematic in some way and I'm about to uncover some blind spots in my reading of them. Yeah, this could go bad. Anyway, let's get started. The first book I'll be reading one-star reviews of is Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. Neverwhere is an adult fantasy novel that was published in 1996. The basic plot is that it follows a young man named Richard who moves to London and discovers another side of the city. Sort of like a seedy underbelly where there's magic and monsters. Let's read some reviews. This one-star review reads, I used to think I really liked Neil Gaiman. It took a long time for me to realize that I don't. The first two Gaiman works I read, Sandman, Smoke and Mirrors, are simply his best. American Gods, Stardust, and Anansi Boys felt as bland as Wonder Bread, but I'd so enjoyed those first two bites that I just didn't notice. Neverwhere finally broke the spell. Subjected to a milquetoast male protagonist, devoid both of common sense and interesting traits, pursuing a pretty normal girl who turns out to be a B-word. I wouldn't say that door is a B word. Pursuing her leads him to a magical alternative girl. Yeah, that's the girl that she just said and mentioned in the other sentence. In her magic hidden world, which parallels our own. Everyone inside is snooty about their secretness and magicalness and are deeply unlikable en masse. After falling in love with the alternative magic girl, though the everyman never realizes it until he's hooked back up with his old B word. Oh, okay. So the original B word was his fiance. Okay. I got a little bit confused because we're not using names. We're just referring to women as B word throughout this entire review. So there's more than one female character in this book. I don't know. A little bit more help describing who she's referring to would have been super helpful. And then Richard discovers his super destiny or magic heritage or skill of some kind. Some quirky one-off side characters are killed off by villains. And then I come away with a couple vivid visuals and a feeling of total emptiness. So, okay, that's very interesting. I also don't believe that Richard has any particular magical skills or anything. I think he's able to solve this one puzzle near the end that I don't know, I feel like anyone could have solved it, but I think he remains an everyman throughout the entire novel, and that's the point. But yeah. So lots of just vitriol towards Richard and Dor and Neverwhere. These are fun. These are fun reviews. I don't feel very shaken in my opinion of this book. I still think it's a good book. It's not groundbreaking, but I wasn't expecting that going into it, just knowing that it's a fantasy novel between two different Londons, and we're following this everyman type character who's really just exploring this other side of the city that has, magic, etc. So I wasn't expecting really earth-shattering prose or plot or anything, but I think it's funny to read these reviews. The things that didn't really stand out to me as anything negative about the book really anchored some readers. So that's fun. I think, we're all entitled to our own opinion, and these one-star reviews really had no ability to influence me so far. They were funny and fun to read, but I don't feel very influenced by them. The next book is I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith, which was published in 1948. This was Smith's debut novel, but you might be more familiar with another book she wrote, The 101 Dalmatians. I Capture the Castle is set in England in the 1930s and follows the life of 17-year-old Cassandra Mortmain, who lives in a crumbling castle with her impoverished family. It's a coming-of-age novel that I have too many things to say about, so I'm going to pause here and begin reading some reviews. Oh, this is great. Okay. I had high hopes for I Capture the Castle. Not being a modern classics person, but loving Cold Comfort Farm, I had the view that it would be fairly similar. It was fairly similar, but nowhere near as good. In fact, I'd say it was the same thing, but written by a 3-year-old. like some kind of early public school attempt at a pastiche. The story in itself is nothing particularly exciting. It is a regular family saga. With pennies missing and food scarce, selfish women who can't do any work themselves unless it involves getting naked, either modeling or etc., and can survive only by marriage, which luckily happens, so yippee, all of which is seen and narrated through the eyes and lips of 17-year-old Cassandra. So I do want to pause here and just mention that this book is set in the 1930s, and these women are coming from a family that used to be pretty well off, so while, it would be great for them to have jobs to help support their family, I don't think we can put the blame on them for not bringing in an income in this time period. We could probably, look to their dad and be like, why isn't he getting a regular job if he can't write right now and feed his family? So that's fun. One cannot even blame the times this book was written in, because even though no woman has ever had a backbone pre-2012, one still hopes they would at least starve to death before lowering themselves to marrying Americans, for goodness sake. So I think that is just, I think they're being funny on purpose with this review, because obviously, getting married is not the only path forward for these women, but it's certainly the easiest path for them during this time period when women were not encouraged to work. If they weren't raised with any particular skills or taught any particular skills, getting a job that would support them would be super duper difficult. And this book also focuses on the idea of marriage as falling in love with someone and having a fairy tale life is part of the novel, but it's not the main plot, and it's definitely not the main goals of the sisters. I think they're just, they're buying into that fairy tale life, but it's not like an answer to their impoverishment that the sisters suddenly become interested in some young men from America. It's not because they want to save their families. It's more that, they're growing up and they want to fall in love. Okay, and I'm just going to read the last line of this 1-star review because it's pretty good. It's kind of a run-on sentence, and we'll try to get into it. What more can be said? I think it was an attempt to be satirical at the posh snobs in the same way Cold Comfort Farm was, and maybe tried its hardest to be a kind of new wave, post-Victorian classic saga of life and love, but was also denouncing those flouncy writers who bloody loved the countryside too much. How dare they, when they lived in the Industrial Revolution and the countryside didn't even exist anymore, but sadly it was nothing but utter toilet bowl water. And that's really fun. That's a really fun hot take. I love the insult of toilet bowl water. It feels very neutral. You could have used a stronger insult. I feel like this run-on sentence was leading up to a, really strong insult, really strong denouncement of this book. But toilet bowl water, I get where they're going. I can see where they're going, but it's not quite there. Just say it was a pile of dog shit, just put shit in there. Pile of dog shit. Toilet bowl water, we could do better. We could do better than that. Yeah, so far these 1-star reviews are not changing my mind about the books I've read. They're just making me very defensive, which was not the goal. The goal was to just read them and be like, oh, wow, that's a different take. Because I want to see different takes. I want to open my mind to how other people feel about books that I have enjoyed, or maybe even books I didn't enjoy. I want to know, how people felt who enjoyed them. But yeah, I guess 1-star reviews are not the place for that kind of balanced criticism. Maybe I should be looking at a 3-star review if I want more balanced criticism. I don't think you're going to get it with 1-star reviews. Next, let's take a look at The Queen of Atolia, a young adult fantasy novel by Megan Whalen Turner, which was published in 2000. This is the second book in the Queen's Thief series, and it follows Eugenides, the thief of Eddis, who unintentionally starts a war between the kingdoms of Eddis and Atolia and must find a way to stop it. Let's read some reviews. So here's one 1-star review that comes out of the gate really strong. Just this. Anyone capable of something this barbaric, cruel, and inhumane is neither capable nor deserving of love. To look on in curiosity to see if someone will scream in pain is ghoulish. There is no redemption for this character. Inexplicably, a wonderfully clever, nuanced character becomes one senseless note. I cannot believe this book is aimed at a young, impressionable audience. What's the message? What's the message? What's the message? What's the message? The more someone hurts you, the more they love you. This is reprehensible. I will not read one more page of this author ever. I do not care how this series ends. For me, it ends here. Unforgivable. So I do want to spoil the scene that she's talking about. It happens in the very beginning of the book. One of the characters has their hand cut off because they are captured after stealing something. And it is a crime that they are guilty of doing. And this is set in like a kind of medieval world. Although it's a fantasy world, it's, you know, medieval-esque, medieval flavored fantasy world. And I don't know, I don't hold it against this world, this medieval fantasy-esque world, that thieves lose a hand, especially when this thief stole something from a queen, from a kingdom, not like a loaf of bread. Like, I could see them deciding to cut off his hand as like an equal crime to his punishment in this setting. You know, that's just how they did it, right? Medieval times, right? But yeah, if that's something that upsets you, I totally understand and respect that you want to take a step back and be like, oh, I don't want to read about anything like that anymore. But I will say the rest of the book does not have anything like that. That is probably the most barbaric treatment of anyone in the entire book. And the rest of the book doesn't have anything like that. I can't for the life of me figure out why this book is so highly rated. I just can't. I hated this book. It took everything I loved from the first book and just trampled on it. I personally thought the main character, Jen, or Eugenides, so Jen, G-E-N, was the best part of the first book. He was just so full of character, easy to root for, and wonderfully unreliable. But almost right at the beginning of this book, the author has something happen that completely breaks Jen, which I could get behind if we got Jen back, especially if he came back swinging. But we don't, at least not really. Not only do we lose one of the most interesting aspects of the previous book, Jen's personality, leaving the book devoid of character, but much of the narrative focusing on Jen's perspective is just painful. So one of the reasons why I really like this book and this overall series is that the plot is driven by the characters' actions, and those actions usually entail consequences. So seeing the characters change in real time because of actions that they took and having to deal with the consequences is so rewarding for me. Like, I don't want someone to get, I don't want to be reading something where a character gets knocked down in a fight and then just gets up and they're like, I'm good, I'm ready to get back in there. Like, I want to see some of that struggle, some of that challenge, and then when they overcome it, that's like so much better. And I don't agree that this character never comes back from, what happens to him as a consequence of his actions. Like, he definitely comes back. So I don't know, maybe it wasn't soon enough for this reader. People are really upset about the chop here. People who played the new Resident Evil video game would probably be totally fine with this book, since there's a lot of chopping in that video game as well. Oh, here's a fun one. Well, I decided to read the second book in the series despite having felt utterly let down by the first. I was hoping it would be a lot better. Since every review I saw here was 4 or 5 stars, it was better. At least I liked the main character more for most of the book. But when Turner pulled the same dumb trick as she did in the last book, revealing that Jen felt something all along, despite the fact that I'd been in his head for most of the book, she never bothered to tell us. Withholding information your character knows from the reader in order to have a surprise ending is amateurish. Is an amateurish, dishonest way to write. If Jen knows it, I should too. End of story. So this person isn't familiar with the unreliable narrator. So that's fun. Beyond which, I think the book would have only been more interesting if the pertinent piece of information had been common knowledge all along. It would have just heightened the drama throughout instead of suddenly adding manipulative drama at the end. I won't be reading the third book, in other words. So that's fun. I have no words. Like, it's hard to even form an opinion about these opinions. Authors are they're supposed to manipulate your feelings and emotions while you're reading. That is the point of a book. And I think unreliable narrators are great, because you never know, when you do find out that they were withholding something from you and you didn't realize from the beginning that they're unreliable. That's really fun. That's like a really fun twist, at least for me. So we'll pause here. I think that's enough 1-star reviews for one day. I wasn't expecting how I would feel about reading them. I was nervous at first because I thought these reviews are going to maybe lift the veil back. whatever, you know what I'm trying to say? Like take the cover from my eyes, and then I'm gonna realize like, oh, these books were bad, or there were parts of these books that, you know, could have been better. But that's definitely not what you will see in a one-star review. I think one-star reviews are mostly just very emotional responses based on the plot, or if the reader is just not connecting with that author's writing in any way, and that's totally cool. Like, you know, not every book is for everyone. But yeah, I think I was expecting more of a like balanced critique of these books, which I will look at 3-star reviews for that in the future if I really do want to be challenged a little bit about my opinions of books that I really loved. I think I'm going to end the video now. That's enough punishment for one day. If you've read any of these books, let me know how you would rate them on Goodreads in the comments below. And if you haven't, let me know if you'd still be open to reading them after hearing some of these truly terrible reviews. If you liked this video, why not give it a like? And if you want to see more bookish content from me, subscribe to The Cup and the Pen. I had a lot of fun filming this video, so I will definitely be reading more one-star reviews of my favorite books in the future. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.